You're listening to the Snob OS Podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And welcome back to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back to the show. This is episode 349 of this show. We want to thank everybody for hanging out with us thus far. Getting into the show, we're going to talk about an ApplePay email phishing scam. There is a Final Cut Pro for iPad. We already know that, but you may want to use an SSD drive with that. We'll tell you why. iTunes isn't dead, and we'll find out why musicians are opting to go the iTunes route over Apple Music. We're going to talk about why women aren't adopting AI at the same clip as men. We're going to talk about who's really doing the work when AI, quote unquote, replaces jobs. We're going to get into some Black History Month. Nica's got her segment where she echoes or highlights a prominent Black history person, past and present. And we're going to get into the hookup and I'm going to show you how to use Apple Intelligence as a chatbot. So let's get right into the show. We always start with the lowdown. And like I mentioned, there is a email phishing scam that is specifically targeting Apple users. Now, I talked about this last week as a hookup as to why you don't want to subscribe or click the unsubscribe. You want to delete these emails. Well, this week, there is a specific email phishing scam that includes Apple Pay. And basically the way it works is the phishing email typically impersonates Apple, same Apple email address, same header, same verbiage as a typical Apple email. But really what catches you is because, of course, I don't know if you've seen these, PayPal does them, not PayPal. Yeah, I've seen them with PayPal to where they'll say, oh, we've got this charge. Click this link to dispute this charge. And it's like this obscene amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Normally that would scare anybody, but like, wait, somebody took some money out of my account. Let me find out. Click the link. No, you don't want to do that. And this is the same thing that this Apple Pay specific phishing scam works. Basically what they do is they will impersonate Apple billing or the fraud teams, and they will warn of a high dollar Apple Pay purchase at a physical Apple store. Basically, they're sending you an email saying, hey, there was a charge of $2,500 for this MacBook. They often include a case ID, a timestamp, and technical sounding details to appear legitimate. The messages will tell you to call a number right away or show up for an appointment to fix the problem. But when you call, you'll end up talking to scammers pretending to be Apple support, trying to get your Apple ID verification codes or payment issue. So basically, I am sending this APB out. If you get a Apple Pay phishing scam, I'm not saying ignore it. I'm not saying unsubscribe. Don't do that. Don't delete it. Don't report it as junk. What you need to do, like we've said before, is go to your Apple account and confirm if that charge is there. If you see some other funny stuff or you want to do some deeper digging into what's going on, you call Apple support. Don't call the number that's in the email. You call Apple support and say, hey, I got an email about some suspicious activity on my account. What is going on? And I'm going to read a little bit more to say Apple doesn't set up fraud appointments through email. The company also doesn't ask users to fix billing problems by calling numbers in random messages. So just want to put a shot out there to where, look, we've talked about this weeks and weeks before. These scammers are getting tricky. They are getting sneaky, and they are trying to get you to call the phone number. They're trying to get you to click the link. If they can do one of those two things, they can then try to convince you, whether over the phone or via a legitimate looking website, that'll get you to add all your Apple ID information, these sort of verification codes. Once they get that, they lock you out of your account, do whatever they need to do. You call Apple support for real. They're going to be like, why'd you do that?
And I'm glad you brought this up because what was it? That's what I was looking at my email for. Uh, what I think earlier in January, my mom sent me this email and she was like, "What's this?" Because in the headline, in the subject it said, "Critical alert: access will be destroyed." By January 12th, 2026. And I was like, ignore it. They're trying to get your information. I was like, and I reminded, and it's like talking to, how we were talking to you
A
guys.
child.
I put in all caps. Never click any link from any email you don't know for sure. If it says click a link, another caps, don't.
Mhm,
Go to the
mhm,
actual website instead. And I think that's the key thing. If someone sends you an email saying that money is being drafted from your account, you don't need to click their link to see it. Go log into your bank account because trust me, if someone has gotten your money, you're going to see that draft on your bank account.
mhm,
I get emails that I know are valid. I still don't click in the link. I just
mhm,
go to the website and navigate to where I need to go because scammers have gotten real crafty. And every time a protection is put in place, they find a way around it. Every time they find a way around it. And you can go when, I don't know if anybody's noticed, when you message with Apple, the your iMessage looks different
mhm.
than your
It's
regular
gray.
iMessage with another Apple user. It has like a gray background.
Mhm,
So that's how you know it's it's officially Apple that you're talking to. So again, just to be safe, don't click on a link unless you're for sure. And even if you're for sure, it's easier if you get an email or one of these phishing schemes from your bank. Just go to your bank, go to the website. If you have to go to a website and log in, or just open the app. And a lot of times when they ask for these verification codes, if you notice when you call into, like, say you call into AT&T and they were like, "Oh, we need to verify who you are," they'll already have your phone number and they'll send you a code. They're just getting that code for verification for who you are, not to get access to any IDs. It's just a verification of who you are. So that's one of the key things. If people start asking you for your verification code, from, Apple or from anybody, that's usually a red flag when
mhm.
they do that. Like I said, typically, if they say we need to verify your account or who you are, we're going to send you a code. And they send you a code. You don't have to tell them the number. They already know the number. They already have your information. If you're doing that type of verification, if you're calling in to, schedule something, change an account, that type of thing. So just be super careful and critical and don't just haphazardly go into these things because people are counting on the fact that you just gonna be, oh my God, and be scattered and get nervous and just click on it without giving it any thought. Take a beat, really read the email, and then go to the website yourself. Don't
Yep,
click on the links. Don't
yep,
click on the links.
yep, and another thing to do if you're concerned, see if you can spot some of the other red flags. The email address will look funky. Make sure you click on the email to see if it's actually an Apple looking like email, and you can tell I said looking like, but you
Hmm.
can tell the difference
Yeah.
between what Apple sends and what something looks kinda sketchy. Another thing is you can look at the phone number. You can check the phone number, and if the phone number that they're asking to call, you can check that on doing a Google search, and if it looks funny or whatever the case may be, that's another red flag. Um, just be vigilant. But if you don't want to do all that, like Nika said, check your bank, go directly to Apple, and have them confirm what you have in your email.
Yep.
All right. The next thing I've got going on is Apple announced Final Cut Pro for iPad a couple of years ago, maybe a year or so ago.
Yeah, I think
Um,
about a year ago.
when they announced their Apple Creator Studio, and if you pay for that subscription, they give you Final Cut Pro for iPad for free. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people with iPads who are opting to use their iPad over their Mac or over their whatever the case may be, that would be a good advantage for you to get Apple Creator Studio because you get Final Cut for iPad for, well, it include, get it for free. It includes Final Cut for iPad. The issue with Final Cut for iPad, unlike Final Cut for a Mac, is if you have to, for example, create, let's just use our show, for example. Let's just say we record and then I take it to my iPad if I have Final Cut Pro for iPad, and I edit up the video and I'll get the clips and I'll do whatever. They are storing that in the Final Cut library. The issue with that on an iPad is the library is in the app. So say for instance, you're editing up all these videos and oh, boom, your iPad storage is full.
Mm.
One of the things you might want to do is, all right, well, I need to download this update. So let me hurry up and delete Final Cut Pro for iPad off my iPad, figure out some other ways I can get some more storage, and then try to reinstall Final Cut Pro for iPad.
Mm.
That makes sense. But what you're actually doing is you're deleting the Final Cut libraries
That
that you
has all your
say
videos in
that
it.
has all your videos, it has all your edits, it has all your events, it has all your projects, and just reinstalling Final Cut Pro for iPad is not going to bring all of that back, unlike if you were doing it on a Mac.
Mhm.
So I'm reading this story, and basically what they're saying is if you are using Final Cut Pro for iPad for real, go ahead and get you an SSD, an external SSD, use the USB-C drive and save all of the project files, save all the library stuff, save all that stuff on the SSD so it's there on the SSD. Then you can uninstall and reinstall the app if you need to, if you're not using it, if it's taking up too much space, whatever the case may be. Then you connect it to the library that's on your SSD, and then you can reload everything similar to how you do on a Mac. So I know there's some people, reason why I put that out there, because one, I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. If you do delete the app, you delete all the stuff that goes along with it,
Mm.
which could be important if you are editing something for like social media. There are a lot of social media content creators that really don't need a computer. All you need is a phone. And then if you want to get some other detailed editing or whatever, you could use Final Cut Pro for iPad. Well, look, to be on the safe side, spend I think a good terabyte SSD will run you maybe $150. Go ahead and invest. That way, if something ever happens to the Final Cut iPad app, you still have all those project libraries, you still have all that content, versus just saying, oh, well, I've got the finished product because I shared it and, published it, but
Mhm.
you don't have the actual raw data.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I have to say, um, I tried Final Cut for iPad, and
Hmm.
to me, it's a completely different experience than using
Hmm.
it on your Mac. So you really kind of have to have a two mind when you're going into it. So for people that, plan on using this heavily, just be mindful of that. And the other thing is these events that you create in Final Cut typically are pretty large,
Hmm.
even for some of your smaller projects, because it has all these background services that are running as well. And unless you have one of the souped up iPad Pros,
Hmm.
you are likely going to run out
Run
of
out of
space
space quick.
pretty quickly.
Hmm.
So if you're thinking about using it, if you plan on using it, just like Terrance said, just be aware, go ahead and get you an external drive as well. And I have to say, kind of on like a funny note, I saw on social media, I was trying to find it online, a Mac folder shaped um, external hard drive, and it's relatively small. It just kind
Hmm.
of pops on the side, and it looks like a an iPhone, a Mac folder
Oh, wow. Okay.
icon. So it's like pretty neat looking. So it's one of those things where if you're gonna do it, have a little fun with it, because the whole point of being able to me, being able to have Final Cut on your iPad Pro is you don't have to have all this extra stuff.
Hmm.
And with the file size and the storage that's going to take for these things, you're going to have some extra stuff. So you might as well make it as small as possible and as unique as possible, because you're going to have that for doing that type of, if you plan to use your iPad to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a good idea for somebody's mobile, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, you still gotta take some precautions, and you may have to carry a little bit more. SSD probably is not what you was thinking about carrying when you ran out the house with your phone and your tap and your iPad. But
Right.
look, what you want to
If
be
you're going to be
safe
outside using
versus
this
sorry.
iPad to and it's a video, you got to be prepared.
Yep, yep. All right, moving on to the last story in the lowdown. iTunes is not dead. And I'll just read this quote from the story. Labels, like music labels, have been strategizing around iTunes, in part at the behest of Apple, executives tell me. In conversations with partners, the platform's team has been encouraging them to take advantage of the full breadth of its offerings, not just marketing to Apple Music subscribers. In other words, but also to iTunes users. One stat that makes the opportunity clear: over 80% of iTunes users are not subscribed to Apple Music, meaning they are fresh eyes and ears to reach, particularly during an album's initial release week. This also suggests these customers either don't stream music or have chosen a different service for their primary consumption needs, something Apple likely needs to watch. An Apple spokesperson tells me that half of iTunes customers began buying songs on the platform in the past 10 years or so since the launch of Apple Music, and almost 50% of the top 10,000 best selling albums each quarter are new releases. This suggests that people aren't just using iTunes to revisit old music from their youth. So I can remember when iTunes first, I think that was the first product that I bought or bought into the Apple ecosystem was iTunes, right? I think I
Mm-hmm.
told this story before. My DJ at my wedding was whack.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through to iTunes and made a playlist and was like, hey man, play
Like,
these, right? Ever since then, I've had iTunes. But, in the past, 10 years, I've adopted Apple Music because it's just mad
easier.
convenient.
Yeah.
What I have still done with iTunes, and this is what I would suggest all people do, and I think I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you have artists out there that you really love, like you rock with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buy their music. Just don't stream it, because artists make more money when you buy the album versus streaming it. A lot of people assume if I'm just paying the Apple Music subscription service and I stream their music a billion times, then they'll get the same amount of money. They're not. So I would highly suggest that you still use iTunes to buy the album and then stream it, right?
Yeah.
Because they'll get the money, your artist will get the money both ways. They'll get more money when you buy it and they'll get more money when you stream it. But in order to buy it, you could go to iTunes. Now, again, the first step would be to go to the artist's website. A lot of them use Bandcamp. A lot of them use like other ways to buy their albums. You can
Mm-hmm.
buy a vinyl. They've got special downloads, whatever the case may be. If you really about supporting the artists, my suggestion would be first go to their website, buy it however they suggest you buy it. Step two, if they don't have a way to buy it, go to iTunes, buy the album, and then if you want to stream it on Apple Music, you can, but just know you have the album. So if you ever decide to switch to something else, you can use iTunes and, move that to another platform, or you have it, right? You can actually download the song to your Mac or to your PC or to your server, whatever the case may be, and you can cut off Apple Music streaming, but you still have those albums, you still have those songs from those artists that you like because you bought them.
Right. And it's one of those things also that in this age of streaming, it seems like because it's so easy to
Mhm.
stream
Mhm.
art and content, whether it be music, whether it be movies, it's so easy to stream, but you're losing the benefit of having physical media.
Mhm.
And when you're using iTunes, you have that MP3. That
Right.
is
Right.
yours. You have that. On
Yep.
streaming, you're just listening to
Yep.
something that's on in some data farm on some cloud server out in
Mhm.
McDonough or something, and you don't have that physical media. And I think we're going to get to the point where, because again, everything is streaming, we're losing the benefit of having physical media. I mean, now we don't even have, the CD or DVD on
Mhm.
laptops anymore.
Mhm.
It's like novelty now to go and buy an external CD
Or
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 DVD
vinyl.
or
Yeah.
vinyl. and it's one of those things where, we're losing some of the recipes by, strictly going streaming. So it's just also good to have that physical media in iTunes as well, especially if it's your favorite artist or favorite album of that sort. So
And not just that, support your artists,
yeah,
man. Just stream again, like I said,
because
just
they're making fractions of cents
just
on just on a stream,
right,
fractions of a cent.
right. So that ain't I mean, and then what happens is the artists, they gotta go on tour, they gotta tour, they gotta tour, they gotta tour, and they get tired, so therefore you don't get the music as often because they gotta tour to make the money back that they used to create the
Straight
album,
out.
because ain't nobody buying music anymore. So again,
Nope.
this is again, I'll just say it again. If you love music like that and you really love that artist like that, like Beyonce, or let's just use Bad Bunny for example. He's coming up and doing
Super Bowl.
the Super Bowl halftime show. If you really rock with Bad Bunny like that, don't just stream his music, buy his music, and iTunes is still there. You can still download it on your phone and go buy and link it to your Apple ID and buy the album. It's like 10 to 12 bucks, no different than
9.
right, right, no different than we was going to Sam Goody and buying CDs,
Yep.
and then that way, at the very least, if you never touch it again, you can
You still
say,
have it.
I support my artists
Yeah.
because I buy their albums versus streaming them, because
Yep.
the artist will be like, "Thanks for
Appreciate
streaming
you.
it." But like if you buy it, say, "Yo, I rock with y'all, and I've got a LP and I've got a vinyl, or I went to y'all website and bought it that way,"
I got the limited edition
that will
where
go
the the
right,
the vinyl is blood red or
right,
clear or whatever
right.
the case may be.
That will go a much farther way than just streaming it. All right, so that is going to do it for the lowdown. We're going to move into second string, and I thought this was interesting. You being a woman in I want to get your take on this. And I saw this article in Fast Company, and they were talking about how AI. We all know AI adoption
Mhm.
is going crazy, but there was a research showing that there are women who aren't adopting it at the same clip as men. And I mean, it's obvious reasons, but these are reasons that, comparatively speaking, men ain't thinking about, right? We just doing whatever, right? And
Right.
there may be some women that do it, my wife, for example, she is all in, right? But there are some women out there who have some
Concerns.
issues, right? And one of them
Mhm.
is how much electricity that the underlying technology uses, like, ChatGPT, which is the most popular one. You know, Sum up one of the other issues was, let me find one of the other ones. Where is it at? Yeah, AI infrastructure would consume 6 times more water than just not just electricity, but also water. So we've all heard these things before, but what was interesting to me about this story was, women are actually like, "Yo, I don't wanna be the type of person that's just burning up all the electricity. I don't wanna be the type of person that's just burning up all the polluting all the water with this AI
Using
stuff."
all of our natural resources to
Right.
generate cartoon versions of yourself.
Right. Another thing that they mentioned was data centers. The data centers are popping up everywhere. The more we use these AI services, the more these companies are willing to invest in data centers. And the more they're willing to invest in data centers, the more data centers go up. And the more data centers go up, the more they pollute, whether it be environmentally or sound wise. Some of these
Mhm.
data centers are loud and annoying.
Yeah.
So of course, leave it to the women to be more concerned about some of these things that affect all of us. But I just wanted to get your take on the effects of AI as being a woman that's heavily into AI.
Right. So it's one of those things where it's like the benefits of AI, but of course with any benefits there always are downsides and pitfalls. And my thing, if we could use this technology in a way that doesn't completely torch the earth, that would be
Mhm.
great. But again, people are spending time um making these random things just to do it because they're
Mhm.
bored and not,
Mhm.
being conscientious and
Right.
using it smartly. And I
Right.
think that's one of the things, because I think it's just typically in, I don't want to stereotype women or generalize women, but generally women are more concerned about the full process or the full effects and the full ramification of things, and not just, women have self-control. A lot of women have, great self-control, and it's like, I like this thing, everybody's using this thing, I want to use it too, but is it really that good for everybody? And the short answer is no. I think the long answer is a little bit more complicated, because this technology is here. It's not going anywhere, even though people are talking about the AI bust. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that the slower adoption of women are concerns that sometimes men don't really think about or don't necessarily really care about. So I think that I agree with the article in that as respect, but I think women are using AI just as much as everybody else. I just think there's additional concern
Right.
about the usage of it. Again, like you mentioned, using water resources, data centers, you have to keep them cool and
Mhm.
cold, because these things generate so much heat, because they are churning out so much content. They're searching, they're going through their algorithms, they're doing their reasoning just to get you that answer in a couple of seconds. So that takes a lot of computing power, and you have to have systems cooling so
Mhm.
that they don't overheat and go down. The thing with building the data centers, typically they're putting data centers in poor
Mhm.
areas, typically
Mhm.
in rural areas and poor areas where, a lot, it's in black neighborhoods, obviously, because that's usually where they go first. But I think the rural community is seeing as well that they are willing to, kind of cast the rural communities aside so that the urban and the bigger capitals and the larger metropolis areas can have all these things. And they're just kind of, you got all of this land out here. You
Mhm.
don't need it, not realizing that there are
Mhm.
whole ecosystems out there that are living in these woods, on these lands. As a person who comes from a small town where there's nothing but land and cows and trees and all these things, they're coming to chop that stuff down. And it ultimately has an effect on the entire climate and ecosystem. So I think women just are a little bit more concerned about these things. It's like, hey, we still want to have a planet to live on that's livable, that's inhabitable, but y'all are wasting it, creating porn from
Mhm.
women's photos on Twitter. And I mean, I don't know if you saw it, it was like a whole big thing what Gronk could do,
Mhm.
and these men were using it to create CSAM, to
Mhm.
create deepfake porn of women just because of pictures that they posted on social media. So you're using up all of these resources to do that BS when you could be using it for something else, or not using it at all, so that we could have more resources to use it when we actually need to get something productive done. So I really, I can agree with this article that women are being a little bit more cautious when it comes to
Or
the overall
conscious.
impact
Yeah.
of AI.
All right. All right. Yep. So, like you said, it ain't going anywhere. I will, uh, will,
Acquiesce.
no, I will call myself leaning into my feminine energy because I am being one of the people who are dragging their feet when it comes
Mm,
to adopting AI. And I'm going to say, well,
that's why.
I'm leaning into my feminine energy because I'm concerned about the environment and I'm concerned about they coined the term, they call it eco anxiety.
Hmm,
Eco anxiety is
I hadn't heard that.
what the term is. So I'll chalk it up to that. I'm I have some eco
You're
anxiety
eco
around,
conscious.
yeah, around AI. All right. So the next story I got coming up, like I titled, Who's Really Doing the Work When AI Replaces Jobs? So I'm going to
Fun.
read this passage from this
Okay.
story. Isaac, who's 33, has been a mid level software development engineer at a big tech firm for 4 years and noticed entry level job postings dropping at his workplace at the start of 2025. The work, however, didn't vanish with them. Tasks once handled by junior engineers, like writing and testing code, fixing bugs, and contributing to development projects, were absorbed by senior staff, often with the assumption that, quote, AI would make up the difference. While AI has sped up the velocity and shipping code and features, there are fewer people to do tasks like designing, testing, and working with stakeholders, which AI has zero grasp on. So I just wanted to read that passage and um, get your input on this passage, to where the guy is saying, hey, these companies are saying they're eliminating staff because AI is going to do the work, when in reality, that work just gets shifted to another senior staff. So that's double the work at the same pay. When the company's swarping down, AI is going to do these jobs.
Mhm.
So I just want to get your take on that.
So the thing is, when you have a boogeyman that
Hmm.
everybody already is afraid of or they don't like, if they already have a villain that they don't like, you can just dump a lot of stuff on that villain and put it into that pot. And I'm going to be honest with you, what Isaac is experiencing, it has nothing to do with AI taking over people's job. It's
Hmm.
corporate greed. These
Oh, okay.
companies are cutting staff, like we
Hmm.
talked about last week. I said I think Amazon cut 15,000. It ended up
Hmm.
being like 16,000 people that they cut from their workforce, and that's on top of the 30 to 40 something that they laid off last year. They aren't doing this, in my opinion, because AI is coming in and making that work easier. No,
Hmm.
they're doing it to save money and to make more money for their shareholders and their owners. And they're just blaming it on AI because AI is an easy villain to put on. Because when you think about what AI can do, sure, it can speed things up. Sure, it can make processes simple, but there's still people behind it that have to do it. There are still people that have to generate the code. There are still people who have to review the code, because you can't solely trust what AI is doing to be correct. You have to
Hmm.
have a competent individual, in this case, software engineers, to be able to, okay, Claude, give me a function that, that sorts, I don't know, that gives me all this, that gives me all of the, um, that allows me to calculate all the scores from previous stats of football players, whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
Sure, it can create that function, but there are a couple things in that. Is the function efficient? Do you have to iterate over it a couple times? Is
Hmm.
the syntax correct? Is the logic correct? You're going to have to take, then this person is going to have to take this function, this block of code, and put it into the existing pipeline. They may have to make changes to the pipeline to ensure that it meets all the variables, it meets all the parameters of the other parts, the naming conventions of the other parts of the pipeline of the code. So you still have to have a significant level of intervention by a capable individual. And again, like I said, AI can come up with these things. They can do a lot of things. You can write these detailed prompts and, page long prompts to do all this thing, but you have to go in and make sure
Hmm.
that the prompt is generating what you expect. And you have to have someone who knows what they're looking at, who knows what they're doing, to be able to make that delineation of, can we go with this, or are there modifications? Do we have to go back and refine this code for whatever particular reason? And again, to me, people, because AI is already the villain, these people who are making these billions and billions of dollars, they're just dumping it all on AI. Yep, it's AI's fault. AI is coming in to take it over. So, that's why that's why your job is redundant. No, your job isn't redundant. Someone else is still going to have to do that job.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to read another portion of this story, and it continues on. Senior developers are burning out.
Mhm.
And when they leave, there's no rush to replace them because the AI will do it. Quotes. Isaac says, worried that he'll become the next strung out senior. He's already looking for his exit, ideally at a smaller tech firm. So, um, what it sounds like you're saying is these companies aren't advancing in AI nearly at the clip that they want you to believe. What they're really doing is using AI as a scapegoat to lay off people or get rid of people in order to save money because that's less overhead. So it's just another sneaky way of saying we're laying off 500 people instead of saying we're laying off 500 people. What they want you to believe
Mm-hmm.
is that we
AI is
have
going to do it.
integrated AI into our systems. And as a result, we are finding, like you said, redundancies that AI has finally been able to identify and streamline our workforce or our workflow, whatever the case may be. I ain't never think about it like that. And that,
Yeah.
if that's the case,
And
it's
and I
shady,
can
but
give
not
you
surprising.
And I can give you a personal example for that. So I'm looking at the job market. I'm looking at job descriptions. So like I've mentioned before, Claude is my preferred um, platform.
Hmm.
And I've trained one of my chats in Claude to evaluate job descriptions based on my background and my experience.
Oh, okay.
And before I even apply, I can read through them and kind of get the highlights, but
Hmm.
sometimes you miss things. So I copy and paste the job description from the website. I pop it into Claude and say evaluate this job for to see if it's a great fit for me. And let me tell you, yesterday and today, I ran evaluations on 10 roles.
Hmm.
They were senior engineering manager roles and they were
Hmm.
director roles.
Hmm.
Guess how many of those roles fit with what I expect them to do?
Zero.
One.
One.
And you know why?
Why is that?
Because at a senior engineering manager level, at a director level, um, role, at even whether it be small tech or big tech, you don't typically expect those people to be writing code. And one of the red flags that was identified in each of those chats is they expect hands on coding. They expect 50% hands on coding in addition to people management. So
Okay.
you're at a senior manager or a director level,
Hmm.
you're leading people, but you're also expected to be hands on coding as
Mm,
well.
got it.
And that is the biggest, like, what the hell in tech? Because typically, honestly,
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
typically at a manager level, you may do some coding, but it's
Hmm.
maybe 20%,
Hmm.
maybe 10%.
Hmm.
At my last corporate role, I was leading a team of about 6 to 8 people. And it was less than 20% of me hands
Hmm.
on coding. If anything, it was having working sessions with engineers on my team to
Sure.
kind of like walk through problems. But
Hmm.
me, myself, I wasn't submitting any PRs
Right.
because I didn't have time to with the other stuff that I was doing. So I say all that to say is they are baking in the work that they're saying that AI is going to do, they're
With the senior
baking it
people.
into other roles.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so
crazy.
how do you expect to have a director or a senior manager? Senior manager is managing other managers with teams. Directors are managing other senior managers with teams. And you're
Hmm.
expecting those people
To also.
to also be hands on
Mhm.
keyboard. I was interviewing for a position and it was an associate director role. And I was
Mhm.
talking to the interviewer and you do the behavioral stuff, you're doing all those things. And then so he pulls up this IED he wants to like, so let's, create some functions. I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, wait a minute. What are
I
we
was like,
talking about
I
here?
was like, what are you talking about?
Are you asking? You rather ask me about HR or payroll or vacation?
Right. And so I'm like, in my experience, in these types of interviews, the technical aspect of it is based on design, based on
Mhm.
architecture, based on
Mhm.
framework, that
Mhm.
type of thing, not actual hands-on keyboard. And he
Mhm.
was doing that. And I was like, I'm going to stop you right there. And, we had a little talk about it. And he was like, no, he was like, honestly, some of our directors, senior directors, even our VPs
No,
are,
whatever.
writing code. And I'm like, bull BS.
Right.
But in my experience now, and looking at some of these, because they're very crafty with the titles, they're very
Mhm.
crafty with how they word it. But
Mhm.
Claude, my girl's able to,
Sniff it out.
parse it out and was like, mm-mm.
Mm.
They want you to be hands like you. And all 10 of those roles, again, they were between senior manager
And a director.
and director
Mhm.
roles in the AI ML space. And
Mhm.
they wanted you at least to be 40 to 50% hands on coding. So
And this is
all
not
around,
just let me check your competency at the interview. This is like, this is what you're gonna be
this
doing
is
if
what
you
you're
get this
going to be
job.
doing. And when I
Wow.
asked the other guy for the associate director, I said, what is the expectation for this role? And he
Uh-huh.
was like, oh, about 70%. And I was
You
like,
can
this
make me a
isn't an
junior.
associate director role. I was like, they are job. I called it job fishing. I told him when I first, I was like, I was just job fished
Mhm. Oh, wow.
because they
Yeah.
give you this title. The
Mhm.
salary was lower than I would expect for that role, but it
Mhm.
was an industry, it was a non-tech industry. It was a book publisher.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, you know what? I kind of get it, makes sense. But I was like, some of the other benefits kind of, it kind of made it, workable. But I'm seeing now that, oh no, they are really what they're saying AI is going to do. No, they're
Mhm.
just taking the work and they're spreading it out
Yeah.
among the full pipeline of people from your
Uh-huh.
junior engineers all the way up to
That's
your senior level
crazy.
executives. So that's what it's doing. And
Mhm.
because AI is already the villain in a lot of
Mhm.
people's story, it's easy. It's
Mhm.
easy. It's like the easiest thing you can do is say, you know what? We're doing these redundancies because we found that our AI adoption
Mhm. Mhm.
allows for us to be able to move at a higher using all of your buzzwords. No, you're just making other people do the work, and
Wow.
typically other people who typically don't do that kind of work.
Right. That's, I mean, how can you be a director and responsible for these teams and making sure people are on time and make sure people are doing what needs to be done,
Doing
but you
strategy work,
but you
doing
also clickety clacking at
40 to
the computer.
50% of the time.
Yeah, that's
So,
crazy.
and that's the burnout that Isaac is talking about because
Mhm.
they're passing it up the line.
Mhm. That's crazy.
Hmm.
These companies, boy, they do
They
not
are,
care.
they do not care. And onto that, the Washington Post just basically laid off. I think they end up closing their whole San Francisco office. I
Mhm.
think they call them bureaus or whatever. And they've laid off thousands of people. And someone was saying that Jeff Bezos's wedding cost $50 million,
Mm.
and they said that of the people that he let go, the cost of his wedding could fund those people's
Sure,
jobs.
sure,
And he
sure.
just dumped 75 million
On that
into
that,
that movie, and it didn't make any money.
I don't think it was ever designed to make any money, but
It
that's what
wasn't.
it's worth on
It
that
was
day.
one of those, pay to play type of
Yeah.
things. And it was also vanity. So Melania and Trump can say that,
They had a
she got a
movie.
movie and Michelle Obama
Uh-huh.
didn't get a movie, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. So
right.
we know what it was. But the thing is, off the heels of that, $75
Mhm,
million that you tanked into a movie that nobody really went to see, you've
mhm,
just laid off all of these people.
mhm. Man, these companies do not care. So, tangent, but not really.
Yeah.
You were talking about how you use Claude to create a job search that scans jobs based on your prerequisites, your qualifications,
Hmm.
your what you're looking for, right?
Hmm.
Have you heard the story about this Claude MoltBot Claude Co stuff?
Claudebot.
Would you consider downloading on your like a chatbot for your own personal use? And I don't want to say personal use, but something from the cloud. Like we use Gemini, we
Mm-hmm.
use Claude, we use Copilot. We're using off of their cloud servers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not an AI dude, but what I'm able to glean is that this guy has created, or this company has created, a I don't know, open source code
Yeah.
that you can download on a computer
A
or a
Mac Mini.
server
Most
or a
people
Mac
using Mac
Mini,
Minis.
and then you use that to carry out some of these functions. For example, job searches.
Mhm.
Would you consider doing something like that, or is that like, I'll stick with devil,
So it's interesting because I was seeing a lot of chatter about Clawbot, but they changed. I think it's MobiBot or something
It's
now.
MoltBot or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's something. I After all the stuff, I was like, yeah. I was actually going to because I have my older Mac Mini. I'm not sure if it has the capability, but it's kind of bricked, and so I kind of have to wipe it and start all over again. I was like, hey, maybe I'll try it on that because I saw so many people talking about the things they were using it for and how it was so much more efficient, so much easier. But after all that chatter happened,
Mhm.
up came some issues with
Uh-oh.
the former Clawbot. It was hallucinating
Oh, boy.
significantly. It was giving access to, it
Oh,
was
boy.
really bad. And people were
Okay.
like, this is the worst time
Oh, God.
for Anthropic um to have something like this.
Mhm.
So that was, and I think that was just last week. Um I was trying to remember I was trying to look it up to see what the exact problem was, but I remember seeing that it had kind of taken a life of its own and was
Mhm.
kind of doing its own thing. And it was like, wait a minute, we don't want you to do that. It had a little bit too much power and a little bit too much autonomy over there
Yeah.
doing its own thing, and that just kind of exploded, and people were like,
Yeah,
whoa,
nah.
let
So
me roll back on that. And so I was like, you know what,
s
let me chill because
yeah,
some
so
vulnerabilities were exposed, some serious vulnerabilities were exposed. It was off doing all these hallucinations, doing its own thing. And I was like, yep, I'm glad I did not put that on my situation because I had planned on doing it because I've seen so many people talk about how great it was working. I was like, oh my gosh, this
mhm.
sounds like fun. It's a new something to kind of look into, add to the skill set, but it's like,
Yeah,
no, not so much.
according to this, it says, OpenClaw, the AI that actually does things, clears your inbox, sends emails, manages your calendar, checks you in for flights, all from WhatsApp, Telegram, or any chat app you already use. Again, like you mentioned, in order for it to do things like clear your inbox, manage your calendar, check in for flights, you have to give it access and authorization to do these things on your behalf. And what you're saying is there's been a lot of chatter that giving it all this access may cause more problems than you are actually trying to solve.
Yep. And it's one of those things where I found the name. So it went from Claudebot and not Claude. Anthropic's Claude is spelled Claude,
Hmm.
and this is called Claudebot, but it's
Hmm.
spelled Clawd.
Hmm.
So Anthropic made them change it
Right.
because it's like it's too similar
Hmm.
to what we got going on. So it was MoltBot now,
Hmm.
but people, again, it's a lot of security issues. And the thing about it is, doing this Claudebot now MoltBot, we talked about it, I think, was it last week or the week before on the show, that, and you were like, nah, 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 that OpenAI came up with, shoot, I just lost the name of it, Cowork, which is essentially the same thing that this thing was
Oh.
doing.
Uh-huh.
And it's a separate app where you can give it access to folders, arrange my folders from this, that, and the
Oh, yeah,
third.
yeah, yeah. I
And the
think we
thing
talked about it a
was,
couple weeks
it
ago.
might delete some stuff that you need. So be careful with the prompt that you put in there because you got to know what you're doing, type of thing. So it's one of those things where even Anthropic has their own version of this, and they
Hmm.
still give you these warnings like, hey, bro, it can do this, but it also can not do this
Right,
or
right.
not do it the way that you think it will do it because you're a novice typing these prompts and you may not be given as much detail. So again, yeah, going over Claudebot to Moltbot, um, it was doing some funky stuff, and people were like, ah, let's roll back on
I
this.
I am not with it. And this is just proof positive that I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna let y'all figure it out. And once y'all figure it all out, now you're gonna say, hey, brother tech now, everything is
Now
situated,
come on in, join us.
then maybe I'll consider it. But until then,
Yeah.
y'all are going too fast
And
for your
that's
boy.
the thing, it's going too fast and people are jumping on to these early adoptions
Mhm,
and not taking into consideration that again, these are early adoptions, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
these are it is inevitably going to have issues. It's
Sure.
just the level of issues, and you just have to be comfortable with
Mhm.
that, or use data that you aren't, you don't care about losing, or you have it backed
Right,
up somewhere.
right.
Those types of things. But the thing is, people aren't doing that. They're using their real stuff. They don't have it backed up anywhere, and then when it's
No
gone
test
or it's messed
data,
up, they're just
no test accounts, no fake burner accounts that they can screw all up and
no
"Oh, well,
dummy data.
you're using
If
your
you're gonna
actual accounts, your
right.
actual email, your actual
Make a
accounts to use."
test account for these things to
Man,
kinda
please.
test it out. Don't put it on your primary Mac Mini. If you are involved in this type of thing, I'm assuming you have some level of expendable income. Buy you another one, buy you a cheaper one,
Mhm,
buy maybe a first generation. I'm not sure if it has to be on a Mac Mini 4 or not.
mhm,
I just think that's what people were using,
mhm,
but don't use it. The same thing that we've said before when we talked about people using the developer beta or the public beta of
mhm,
iOS
mhm.
um,
On their real
releases.
phone.
Don't put it on your daily driver, bro,
Mhm, mhm.
unless you have it backed up and unless you don't care about things being messed up. If you have it, use an older compatible device to try it out, or make sure you do a backup of your daily driver if that's what you're going to put it on, because if this thing blows up, does something funky, you can always go back to your image before
Mhm.
you got this update. So, but people, they aren't doing that. They're just out here footloose and fancy free and riding the wave and just YOLO the whole thing. And it's like, this is not very smart.
Alright. Alright, it's enough of AI.
Yeah.
We're gonna move into For the Culture, and this is Black History Month, so Nica's yearly series on Taking While Black is ramping back up, so, take it away. What is this month's first Taking While Black?
So I'm excited about this one. I think you'll be pretty interested in this one as well.
Alright, alright,
Um,
alright.
So this week's Tech and Wild Black is Clarice Phelps. She's a chemist, and she's a Tennessee State University graduate and
Mhm.
researcher at Oakwood National Laboratory. And she became the first African American woman to help discover a new element, tennessine, known as TS, element 117. Again, she's a graduate of Nashville's Tennessee State University, where she holds a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. She has a master's degree in mechanical engineering with a focus on nuclear radiation and engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. And she's currently working on a PhD in nuclear engineering at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So, her groundbreaking work and 20-year journey from the US Navy to the lab marks a powerful milestone in science and representation. Those of you still in school can thank Clarice Phelps for the new element you have to learn on the periodic table.
All right. And we went to Tennessee State around the same time. I graduated in 2001. She graduated in 2003. So not
You were
that
probably
far
on
off.
campus at the same time.
I'm trying to look at her face and be like, do I
Do I
know
know her?
her?
And the thing is, we have a link in the show notes to a link to an article that she did on CNN. And the interesting thing was she earned her degree from Tennessee State, um, and she didn't know what to do,
Hmm.
with this chemistry degree. So she ended up going to the Navy and she worked at the United States Navy. And she
Hmm.
said one of the things was when they were building or discovering this new element, she'd be in her lab working and she was like, she was the only Black woman in any of those spaces. She said that was the first time coming from an HBCU and
Mhm.
going into a space like that, I'm sure is pretty
Mhm.
jarring. But
Mhm.
she said that they thought she was the janitor
Of course.
in the
Of course.
lab that she works in
Mhm.
because she was black. And she talks, a lot about the 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 struggles of being a black woman in these spaces. And as I was reading her statements, I completely agree. Only 2% of black women make up the STEM workforce. 2%. That's an extremely small number. So typically, a lot of times black women are the only. I've had that experience
Mhm.
from, undergrad all the way up through grad school, all the way up through my career. And it's just one of those things where this lady is supremely intelligent
Okay.
and has done some amazing things and is still, unfortunately, you know, comes down to the color of her skin
Sure.
and the limitations that people try to put on her. But I just think what she was able to do, what she was able to be a part of is supremely, like, it's one of the, like, you created something that goes on the
Right.
periodic table. And this is not
Mhm.
just for America. This is for the whole world.
Mhm.
So I,
Yep.
I just think it's great. And for them to call it the Tennessee is, I think, just
Mhm.
like chef's kiss on top of that.
Mhm. Yep. The world will have to know her name. That's
Yep.
pretty dope.
Yep.
All right. All right. Shout out to her. Like I said, maybe I'm keep looking at the picture. Like
Do I know her?
I'm trying to picture her face as a undergrad.
Well, they said she's an AKA, so I don't know if you were on the Greek scene or not, but the article does say that she was an AK as well, so maybe you know her
Let me
from
check
the
my
yard or something like that,
let me
maybe?
check
I
my
don't know.
Facebook. See if we friends on
Are we
Facebook
friends on Facebook?
somehow. Well, shout out to her though. That was
Yeah,
a dope one.
definitely.
All right, all right. So we're gonna move into the hookup, and I thought this hookup was interesting because again, I'm scary when it comes to AI, and I saw this story on how to use the Apple Intelligence chatbot as opposed to OpenAI, as opposed to Gemini. We told these stories about, or we've reported on how Apple's going to team up with Google to incorporate Gemini in some shape, form, or fashion to soup up Siri or whatever the case may be. If you're like me, you ain't really feeling Gemini, you ain't really feeling OpenAI, you can utilize Apple Intelligence as a chatbot on your phone. So I'm gonna walk you how to do it. Basically, there's a shortcut link that you have to click, and we'll put the link in the show notes. Once you open that link in your shortcut app, you save the link to your phone or you save the shortcut, and then you add the shortcut to your shortcuts library, and then you add the shortcut to your home screen. Once you do that, you can either A, click the app, well, we'll call it an app, but basically it's like a home icon on your screen, or you can set a shortcut. Like if you like, for instance, my phone, I have the action button for my 16 Pro Max, right? I can create that button to actually press and hold it, and it'll start up this Apple Intelligence chatbot that can do some of the same things that you can do with OpenAI or Gemini or Copilot. You can have it look up useful information like who was the last 10 winners of the Super Bowl, and it does it quick, it does it fast. There's no latency, there is no issues as far as being able to call and respond, right? The benefits to using this is security because you're not calling out to a third party like OpenAI or ChatGPT. And if you're concerned about how they utilize your data, how they use your data to train their bots, you don't have to worry about that with this. So it keeps it secure and it's running on your phone in conjunction with Apple's cloud compute, right? The drawbacks is it doesn't save any sort of chat history. So as soon as you say, ask the request and it responds back, it clears that chat history, and the information is not up to date. So I'm going to read this thing. The shortcuts knowledge cutoff goes back to October 2023, which may not work for everyone. If you're asking about current events or recent news, there's a good chance that this shortcut won't be able to give you an accurate answer. So there are some benefits and some drawbacks to this. But if you want to try out a chatbot to where you can call and respond, and you're concerned about privacy, you're concerned about security, you're concerned about what is going on with your data, this may be an alternative. So, having said that, I think that's time for us to end this show. So, Nica, tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH. To learn more about the show, please go to snoboscast.com to listen to the show, to get all the latest updates. If you want to become a Patreon subscriber to show us a little love, please go to patreon.com/snoboscast, or you can go to snoboscast.com, click on the links on the website. Get there as well. And as a special thank you, we give you some exclusive content that you will not hear on this show that we're about to do once the show is over. So until next week, we are out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.